Hi everyone. Good afternoon. I'm not sure how many of you are students and how many of you are educators, but I know all of you are really shy because you sit so far behind and all the educators are in front. But I'll do my best to warm up the room a bit. It's 1 hour, right, Matthew? Right, okay. And if you have any questions along the way, do ask. I'm not the ones that stand there really formally and making sure that you don't ask any questions. So please ask any questions along the way. Very happy to address them as much as I can in this 1 hour session. So a bit of an introduction. Who is Kim? Your Vice Chancellor talked about Lim Yuet Kim, and then we do so much introduction, but who actually is Kim, right? I'm a full-time social entrepreneur, and I like to introduce myself as a full-time social entrepreneur because many of us have never ever thought social entrepreneur being a career. Never one of us or anyone in the room probably has never thought that doing good can be your ultimate career. Am I right? Kind of? I mean, if you think that I'm not really there, imagine if your parents, you're going to tell your parents after you finish your study and tell your parents, Mommy, I'm going to go do charity as my full-time job. And how many parents will say, go ahead, I'll support you all the way. Right? So I like to introduce myself as a full-time social entrepreneur because I'm here to tell you that it is possible. It is tough, but it is possible. So in the past few years, I was being listed Forbes 30 under 30, Prestige 40 under 40, and Generation Tatler Asia. And all these accolades I'm not standing here to boast about myself, but I'm telling you that with these accolades, it helped me to magnify the voices that I want to help magnify for people who were in underserved communities, people who didn't have a voice for many, many years, people who were powerless, people who don't have rights in anywhere in the world and lost their homes just in a few seconds when things happen, right? So I am here to tell you that these people can actually change their lives on their own if you give them an opportunity. And this is what the accolades are for. And you probably would never thought of, just now the Vice Chancellor asked me like where I was from. I was from UCSI and I was studying music. I wasn't doing anything about business, I wasn't doing anything about accounts or finance. Before this, I was actually studying music in UCSI for 5 years, and I graduated as a music degree holder. A lot of people would like to ask, oh, so what instruments do you play? I play the guitar, and I did contemporary music. That meant that I will be playing things like jazz, rock, pop, blues. Don't ask me to do it now. So what I did was that during my university years, I volunteered in a refugee learning center. But I didn't teach music, I didn't teach English, I didn't teach mathematics, I taught music. Why? I taught music and I formed a refugee choir because at that point of time, vocals were free. You don't have to use money to buy a guitar, to buy a piano, to buy drums. You're born with a vocal cord and you can sing. How many of you think that you can't sing in this room? I can promise you, everyone is born a singer. And I'll show you one day if I can, if I have the opportunity. But yeah, so I guided this bunch of kids and formed a refugee choir, and we started fundraising for their education year by year. What was amazing is that out of choirs that I've listened to and I've participated in, I have never heard such beautiful vocals and music come from them, because those are the vocals and voices of the powerless. Those are the voices of people who wanted to thrive, but they didn't have an opportunity to. And it was so beautiful, and I hope that one day they could sing it for you as well. But fast forward from my volunteering sort of a career at that point of time, I started a business called PichaEats. And why we're named Picha is because this boy right here is called Picha. He is a boy that we've met in 2015 or 2016, and he's a boy that is very kind, very generous, always there to help, and sometimes him wanting to help make things worse. but this spirit of wanting to help incorporated into the company that we envisioned to be. Our vision and our mission was to help rebuild lives of refugees, and only with a very a pure heart and a soul of kindness can only we drive what we want to do towards our vision. And this boy right here, all the way from Myanmar, is a refugee. And if you don't know who refugees are and why refugees are refugees, you probably have to do a bit of Googling, and you really have to, because it is a very serious issue globally. In Malaysia, they are invisible, but it is a very serious issue. If you have heard of the Ukraine war, there are millions of people turning into refugees just with one decision made. And Ukraine war somehow got a lot of exposure from the media, but people from Palestine, people from Syria, people from North Africa, people from Sri Lanka, all do not have those kind of exposure. But you can actually dig them out and understand why the country started war and turned these people into refugees. Right? What happened in Myanmar? Anyone knows? Sorry?
Revolution. Army revolution.
I can't get you.
Revolution by the military.
Yeah. Military, right? But a lot of persecution was happening in Myanmar. What does it mean? It means that militarians would invade your village and kill kill people inside. If you're a man, they want to recruit you as a military, and if you refuse to, they kill you on the site. If you're a woman, they will rape you. If you're a kid, most likely you'll be abducted or killed on the spot as well. And these people who their lives face danger would start planning to leave their country. And if you know where Myanmar is North Malaysia, all the way up, right? And the only way to escape is to walk down. And when you walk down, Malaysia is the last destination because Singapore's borders are too tight for anyone to enter. So Malaysia became one of the countries that hosts 180,000 registered refugees in Malaysia. In fact, when I was sharing about Picha in 2016, we were just at 136,000. And now we're increasing year by year. And you may ask, where do people come from? Myanmar, Syria, Palestine, Middle East, Pakistan, many other countries that are facing civil war. People will then come to Malaysia. And you'll ask why Malaysia is on the top. Because Malaysia is a Muslim country where a lot of Muslims actually enter to Malaysia. Malaysia has free borders and Malaysia is visa-free. So when you are placed in those very dangerous situations, first thing comes to your mind is the place that you can enter in most freely. And Malaysia became one of it. But Malaysia made a mistake. Malaysia actually was not part of the 1951 UN Refugee Convention. So whoever that enters to Malaysia, Malaysia does not have the framework to support refugees. And whoever enters here means that refugee adults are not allowed to work in Malaysia. And refugee kids do not get access to public education. And healthcare is never an option for refugees because they don't earn a sustainable income to begin with. I have people who try to get treatment in a hospital and they would charge foreigners' price being a refugee, which is ridiculous, right? And all these issues resulted to many refugees who are facing difficult situations in Malaysia. So myself and my two other co-founders saw this issue in the past 7 to 8 years when we were volunteering, we realized that, hey, how come kids are dropping out of education? How come they're not coming to school? And we thought, no, if we, I told you that I just graduated from a university, if we could go through primary, secondary, and tertiary education, how can these kids not even be able to be in school for their primary education? How will they even survive in the future? How will they even speak proper languages and help themselves to count and understand the science in this world? How? And we try and investigate. And what we realized is that these kids who dropped out of education ended up in a salon, ended up in a restaurant, ended up in a parlor, ended up somewhere that they had to work probably 8 ringgit an hour, 6 ringgit an hour to make sure that their family are sustainable because their parents could not find enough money to begin with. So you may ask, where do refugee adults find jobs in Malaysia if they are not allowed to work to begin with? Alright, they will work behind the scenes as waitresses, chefs behind your restaurants, people who wash dishes, washing your cars, cleaners, construction workers are most likely refugees that are staying in Malaysia. So this issue caught our eyes and we thought we must do something about it, and that's where we started doing fundraising concerts. But raising funds every single year, if you're an educator, you will know how difficult it is to actually ask money for people to support education. It's so difficult, right? And we thought something sustainable has to happen. We need to figure out something. So what we did is we saw this lady right here from Myanmar, which is Picha's mom, who could cook, and we thought, why not we sell food that is homemade by refugees with the authentic traditional recipe to people in Malaysia. And literally started off our first sales right here in a very ugly shade, or you can see those plastic boxes, very, very ugly of them. We didn't know what we were doing. We had no F&B experience, we had no business experience, and Picha, Suzanne's arms, and that was Picha's mom right there. So we call Picha's mom Ganu. Ganu in Burma language, in the Chin dialect, meant mother. And when we started calling her Ganu, it really defines what kind of a company that we want to build in the future. A company of shared prosperity, a company of love, a company of kindness, and that was why we started and how we will continue to thrive in our vision and mission. So this was literally our first sales. We sent it to our university friends, they tried it out, and later on, we started doing more. People liked it, people gave us feedbacks, and if you can see, we had the stories on top of those boxes. We wanted to tell people who was cooking them, who are the chefs behind your food. So we had to improve our packaging later on when we started serving to corporates and companies, improving the way we present, improving our photography, improving our presentation and everything. And we started doing more and more other things than meal boxes. So you can see meal boxes, we also started doing catering. Why we had to do catering, when we have buffet line, is when companies say, at one point, I don't really have a lot of events for you to cater meal boxes to, can you do buffet catering? So we had no idea how to put together a buffet catering. The only thing we know about buffet catering was going to Shangri-La to eat buffet, and that's what you see. But how do you actually put them together, right? When at a university level, and I'm sure many of you who are sitting here, if you don't know something, the first thing you will do today is Google. Right? You Google, and what we did is we Google, we YouTube, we Instagram, how people put things together, and we literally just copy, because we're good copycats. So we started copying how other people do, and then we started innovating. So people will always ask, how does innovation happen? Innovation doesn't happen when you sit down here and just think of an idea. Innovation happens when you see what other people do, and you started thinking, what can you do better? what are the interventions that can come into it and make things better, right? So we started trying to put together meals that comes from different countries, Afghanistan, Palestine, Syria, on a buffet line. So people could actually taste different things from different countries at once. So that was how we promoted our buffet catering services. And then later on, we started doing group deliveries and also open house experiences. So this was pre-pandemic. Pre-pandemic, we were doing open house experiences because we wanted people to not just eat the food. We want people to understand who refugees are, why they are here, and what can we do about it. And that was all pre-pandemic. We have went through 2 years of pandemic. Things changed. We've learned our lessons. There are many, many things that we have to adapt and change. And so we came up with a few things. Number one is we started partnering with a lot of other people. One of it was Volkswagen, other companies. And we came up with an idea where companies will support us. We will enable refugees to cook, and we will send to people in need. So that was a very huge movement at the time when the first MCO started, when March 18 was announced as an MCO. And we started thinking, what can we do? So this was one of it that we started doing, and we managed to serve around 30,000 meals at that time to people in need in the first 3 months when we started this initiative. Number two, we started doing frozen food. So you can see here, Ting by PichaEats. Ting is the sound of your microwave, the sound of your air fryer, the sound of your timer if you're sous vide, if you're boiling something, right? So we started doing frozen food because we see how people would actually buy a lot from Grab, a lot from food delivery services, and they always receive one by one, but we wanted to sell in bulk. So we sold frozen food in 3 meals, 6 meals or 9 meals. That way you reduce your logistics transportation costs and you reduce carbon emission as well. So that was something that we were doing in late 2020, and currently we're still growing it. And then we started doing gift boxes as well. So things had to change. And post-pandemic, we're still recovering from a lot of things. We're still facing a lot of issues and difficulties with inflation, with prices going up, and with people wanting to work from home, people wanting to work from office. There's a lot of difficulties that we had to adapt to. And today's world, we talk a lot about adaptive leadership. We talk a lot about agility leadership. How can you thrive as a leader and lead your team towards adapting to the new situation and new outcomes, new environment? So those are the things that people talk a lot today. We've been able to work with more than 700 companies. I think we're near to 1,000 actually. With all these companies coming from big corporates to SMEs to startups to people who want to be part of supporting refugees, where many years ago there was no platforms to actually address the refugee issue and do something about it. And since we started, we've been able to serve more than 450,000 meals to people who wanted food from refugees. And I think the most important part is not those numbers. The most important part is the impact that we're trying to make. Remember I talked about what kind of a company that we want to grow. A company that talks about shared prosperity, a company that talks about love and kindness, right? A company that talks about sharing our experiences to people who we see needed this kind of skills, people vulnerable, come from vulnerable situations and backgrounds that needed this. So I think these are the numbers that we always, as a team, like to review every quarter to see how far we've gone into helping refugees. So since we started, we've been able to train 90 refugees in our food business program, but that also meant that we've worked with 40 refugee chefs who actually cooks from their home, impacting more than 200 to 300 over individuals, making sure that they can pay rental on a monthly basis and put food on the table, and most importantly, send their kids to any form of education. When I say any form of education, why? Because remember when I said refugee kids are not allowed to go for public education, right? So what kind of education can they receive? a lot of refugee kids end up going to refugee learning centers set up by NGOs or set up by refugees themselves. And that meant that the quality of education there varies, is inconsistent, because sometimes they rely on volunteers, sometimes there's teachers, sometimes there's no teacher. I can tell you this, people are very likely to be donating tables, chairs, books, but nobody donates a teacher in a school. And that's very, very, very detrimental to a kid's growth. If you can imagine going to school, you have all the materials, you have the exercises, you have the pencil, you're so ready to start. No one is there to guide you. No one is there to tell you whether you're right or wrong, and no one is there to teach you. That's how detrimental the journey of a refugee kid is. And that's why later on I'll tell you what we're trying to do in terms of addressing this issue. But with all these things, what we're trying to do is to make sure that we rebuild lives of refugees who are already in Malaysia, giving them a second opportunity to rebuild themselves with sustainable income, sending their kids to school, and more importantly, to be able to save money whenever an accident happens. So a refugee in Malaysia cannot receive insurance. So you can buy an insurance, but a refugee cannot buy an insurance. So what happens if there's terminal illness? What happens when an accident happens? Because I have stories where refugee adults, the man who works in a construction, no insurance, and when they fall from the skyscraper, or when they fall while building something, and they get paralyzed, they don't receive any medical treatment. They are not allowed, the medical treatment is too expensive, no insurance will cover them, and no employers will take care of them later on. So the only sole breadwinner of the family was paralyzed, and there's no more income coming to that household. So that's the many, many stories that I have heard and encountered during my journey working with refugees in Malaysia. So it is very, very important to make sure that they have that safety net, to make sure that they save money. I'm actually quite at the end of my presentation, but I'll also tell you what I've learned along the way. But I always like to share this picture here. Why? People who come from different countries, spoke in different languages, come from different culture, practice different religion, come with different skin color, but we don't see all those things. Those things are not important to us. What is most important is people with a heart to show how world peace can look like. If you look at here, I always like to magnify this to the world. Whenever I go to places like Germany, places in Amsterdam, I always like to tell people that world peace is actually possible. In this very small corner in Malaysia, it's happening. And I hope that more and more people would resonate with us, would understand how shared prosperity model is so important in businesses, in institutions, in private sectors, in public sectors. How this shared prosperity model is so important, because without shared prosperity model, someone is going to gain more than the other people. Someone is going to be forgotten. Someone is going to end up at the lowest of the bottom of the chain, and they will never be able to keep up. And that's why we do what we do today. That's why Picha has to exist today. And so I like to show this picture of world peace to everyone. And later on, I also started a social enterprise named The Other School. And why do I have to do that? So in Malaysia, there are actually 130 over refugee learning centers. The problem, as I mentioned just now, is that they don't have quality teachers inside. How does it work? So you set up a refugee learning center, 70 to 80 kids go to school. But what happens is that today, volunteer A's come in, tomorrow volunteer B comes in, tomorrow volunteer C comes in, tomorrow, no teachers. The next day, no teachers. So kids will receive education in a very inconsistent manner, and they will never be able to absorb the right education that they need. Plus, refugee learning centers most likely do not have a set of syllabus to follow. No one is willing to put and set up the system for them. And a lot of them coming from an educational background where they have not be able to go through secondary or tertiary education, doing their best to make sure kids are educated, they can't and won't be able to set up that kind of system for a refugee learning center. And there are 30 to 40,000 of them, refugee kids in Malaysia. But it may seem like a very small number compared to 30 million of citizens in Malaysia. Let me tell you, there are also people at the similar identity as the refugee kids, which are the stateless kids. And stateless kids in Malaysia are in millions. And when stateless, what does it mean? Is that they don't get to go for public education as well. I know the government has addressed this and made sure that stateless kids can go to school. But how do they keep up when there's many years that they have not received education before? Is our government ready for that? Is our system ready for that? Right? There are many millions of kids that do not receive the right education before, and the gap is getting bigger and bigger. Hence why we had to start this, the other school, the other people that are most likely forgotten, the other people who are always invisible, the other people who are at the bottom of the chain. So we started this social enterprise where we enable quality education for refugee kids. What does it mean? It means that when I talk about social enterprise, it means that I need to give my customer value. Right? I need to give you value so that you will support me back. That is what an enterprise is. That is what a transaction is. So if I give you a value by training you in your self-discovery journey, in your personal branding journey, in your skills, hard skills journey, in your personal career journey, if I train you and in return you pay me, and the rest of the money or profit goes to enabling quality education in the refugee kids by hiring teachers. That is our model. That is what we're trying to do to make quality education sustainable and not needing to rely on big institutions or NGOs or big private donors to be enabling it. So that's the model that we've been trying to start. We started the other school in 2020, last year, 2021, and we're still piloting. We're on a good track record to do more educational content for people, and in return, they will then enable quality education for refugee kids. So that's something that I started. So you'll be asking, like, how a musician and Suzanne, who was in my co-founding picture, a psychologist, and Swiling and accounts and finance, managed to pull all these things off. Right? We have no education, business education background. We don't have any F&B background. How? How do I learn? Because today's topic is about optimizing learning for community benefits. Right? If you think you sitting down here, you've been doing nutritional degree, you've been doing mass comm degree. How can I even get related to doing or starting a social enterprise? You can, by learning everything that you need to know about starting a social institution and also an enterprise. So what I did in the first 2 to 3 years are the next few things that I'm going to talk about. The first thing is, it seems very easy, don't be afraid to ask, but how many of you actually do ask your lecturers or your educators if you don't know something? The first thing you'll do is to start Googling. Very normal. But how many of you actually stand up and ask your mentors, your educators, what does this mean? What does a simple term mean to you? Because you can Google it on Google, but when someone explains to you with their own experience, with their own background, it will sound different, with different perspective. And in today's world, we're so used to digital. We're so used to, just going on to Google to find our answers, to find, our solution. But we forgot about asking the people just right beside us who had more experience than you. How does it work? What does it mean? Show me. So along the way, the first 2 to 3 years, we had no idea how to do it. So what we did, we talked to F&B owners, we talked to finance people, we talked to the legal team, we talk to a lot of people. If you ask me how many mentors I have today, I can tell you I have near to 30 to 40 mentors. To ask every question that I don't know. How to see accounts, how to look at balance sheet, how to, what's the F&B safety measures in Malaysia. There are many, many things that I had to ask along the way. So ask until people think that you are really annoying. That's the key. Don't be afraid. I have so many youngsters always tell me, can I really ask? Do I sound annoying? What if people are going to judge me? So, the people that's going to judge you today don't even remember you the next day. So it's okay. Right? Don't be afraid to ask. If you're afraid today, think. Why are you afraid? Why? What are you scared of losing that caused you to be afraid? You're scared of losing your face? You're scared of losing your pride, your dignity? And because of those things, you stop yourself from learning something new. Is that worth it? That's something I would ask myself every single day if I want to ask a stupid question from someone. The next thing is, how do I learn? Read what's relevant. I know it's very boring. I hate reading as well. I don't like reading. But I realized how beneficial it was to me. So books that are related to business, 0 to 1, Skill Up, there are many other books, Simon Sinek's book about leadership, all these books that you thought that it wouldn't help you, actually helped me along the way. So many things. And people always ask, you read so many books you can remember. The two things I will encourage you. Number one is, remember when you're in primary and secondary school and you had to read so many subjects at one time? You had to do science, geography, chemistry, biology, and so many other subjects all at once. Some of us didn't get all A's, which is fine, but many of you will probably have, do a lot of A's in those subjects. How did you do at that point of time? How did you read so many things and memorize so many things and make sense, give them sense to it? How did you do it? Right? It's the same as what we're doing right now. I would read a book at one point, and I would read another book at the same time, and I would do audio listening at the same time as well. But that was the ability that we had before, and when we go into our working world, we probably have forgotten all of those because we were dying to escape from our academic world. Right? So you have the ability to do so. Right. Number two is that when I read something, the whole book, I don't intend to memorize everything. I don't intend to know everything in the book. But if I read that book and I get one big lesson out of it that changed or influenced the decision that I was going to make as a business owner at a point of time, it's all worth it. It is okay if you can't memorize 10 things in that book. It's okay. But if you learn one experience from it, one tip from it, one solution from it, and it changed the way you see things, it changed your perspective, it changed the decisions you make, it's all worth it. So read something, read a book that is 100 pages is okay, read a book that's 1,000 pages is okay, read an article, whatever. Don't stop reading, don't stop enriching your mind. It's very, very important because you never know that education would not just influence you, but also the people that are around you and you giving them the benefit. The third thing, which a lot of people are afraid of, is to fail fast. You'll be asking me, especially when I meet a lot of scholars. I don't know how many of you here are scholars in your life. Have you been a scholar before? Or you're a scholar? No? You're not scholars? No? You're still very quiet. If you've been a scholar in your life, remember how hard it is that you need to make sure that you do not fail. Because if you fail, it means that you will lose your scholarship. Alright? It's not bad to be a scholar, but do not let that syndrome haunt you for life, for not wanting to test and experiment things. for not wanting to fail. It is okay to fail, because with only failing, you learn something from it, and you move on, and you start doing something different again. But if you don't fail, if you're safe all the time, if you wish that every single decision you make will be the right one, will be the successful one, it's not going to happen. Life is going to throw it at you and tell you that it doesn't work the way you planned. Nothing goes with your plan. And in today's world, when we talk about adaptive leadership, agility leadership, that is what it's all about. Nothing goes according to plan. Nothing is how you envision to be, and it turns out how you wish to be. 99% of the time, it does not happen that way. And how do you train yourself to fail fast, learn from its experience, and move on? It's so easy for me to just say it here, and many of you will be like, I've heard this 100 times. But what's stopping you? What's stopping you? What's making you so scared about it? What's that fear in you for failing? You have to address them. Alright. I always think that people want to change. People want to fail fast. People want to do something braver, but they're not ready for it because they're afraid of losing something. What is it that you're afraid of losing right now that caused you to not want to make that move? You have to address it right now. Alright? So every day I will ask myself, if I want to make this decision, what is it that I'm going to lose that will stop me from making that decision? And in the end, you realize that the worst things that can happen is actually just death. Anything before death can be fixed, can be solved, can be learned. So those are the things that I went through in the past 7 years that pushed me on my entrepreneurial journey. And I hope that whatever that I learned could inspire you, at least one person in the room, not looking to inspire every single one of you, but at least one person in the room to take on these lessons and make a different decision that you have to make today. If today you decided that you need to change your career, if today you decided that you need to change your subject, if today you decided that you had to tell your parents something, because I was in that situation before. It's not nice. It's not nice when you are very fearful of something and you live in fear every single day. Right? So if there is something that you have to change in your decision, think about it. What are you afraid to lose that is stopping you from that decision? So thank you very much. That's basically my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Lim. Before we go into Q&A, maybe this is the chance we get to hear them speak to us now. Everybody seems to be very shy, right?
Yeah, very shy today.
Yeah.
I think it's raining, that's why.
Was it raining earlier? Anyway, I'd like to invite Dr. Yuet to moderate the question and answer session.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Ms. Kim. I think it was an amazing talk. I was asking Masita just before the talk began, what does Picha means? I'm sure many of you must have thought about the same question, right? So I thought it's some word, maybe a dish. That's where he narrated the story. Now, I'm even more curious now, how is Picha?
Oh, Picha is good.
Good. How old?
I think he's 9 years old now. Just celebrated his birthday 2 months.
Wow, wonderful.
Yeah. He's good.
So I'm sure you will give our regards to him.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. You have given us enough food for thought today, right? Through PichaEats. Right? Amazing, I would say. And I'm sure, maybe if not today, tomorrow you will write this as a book. Who knows? And I would love to read that book one day. Okay, my question, I think I'll begin with my question first before I ask you guys. Okay. My question, it might not have, you have put it very nicely, very, it looks like very simple, very easy. But I'm sure you had your fair share of troubles, difficulties to reach up to this level. Maybe you want to share some of those challenges that you faced or you encountered while setting up Picha or moving along the way and so on.
Sure. I think that's not the first comment that I got from as people has told me, how could you narrate something so smooth without challenges behind? There are a lot of challenges, definitely, but the challenges happen in different phases. And when we started, as I mentioned, we had no business background, and that meant business challenges, operational challenges, community challenges. When I talk about community challenges, it means that every chefs that we work with come with different sets of background and difficulties. We have people who came to us with 30,000 ringgit in debt. We have people who came to us with their husbands paralyzed. We have people who came to us with their parents in terminal illness, right? There's so many things that you have to overcome before having them to become a chef. Why? Because if you are a working adult and imagine you facing those situations at home, would you be high performing in your own career, in your own workplace, right? Same to these people who are chefs themselves. Every day if they're cooking and they're thinking about the debt they need to clear off, they're thinking about their spouse in pain, they won't be able to cook great food to people. And if they are not able to cook great food, it means we can't deliver quality food to people. And if we don't deliver quality food, people wouldn't come back. And so we had to solve more than just hard skills. We had to solve their situation, medical issues, debts, and everything. We are always there with them. So these are the challenges that comes with it, with choosing to be a social entrepreneur in a humanitarian space. There are many other challenges as well, personal challenges, leadership challenge. I became a social entrepreneur from being a musician. That meant I've not gone through corporate background, I've not gone through a proper working environment. I don't know how to lead a team. And at one point, the people that we hired all left at one point. Because we had no idea, zero idea about leadership. And what do? Fail, move fast, read everything about leadership. Read everything about leadership. How you manage people, how you lead people, how you have those conversations. Read and experiment and fail and do it again. And today I'm able to help my team members thrive themselves. And that's something that I'm very, very proud of, not just for myself, but them as well. So those challenges comes with these kind of mindsets that we need to overcome. There are many other challenges, personal challenge as well, how I grow in my own personal life that affected my career. The chefs have their own personal challenge. Me too, as a social entrepreneur, I do have my own personal challenge. And I was in a very, very, very dark place before. I was at suicidal mode. How do you get out of those things? How do you get out of depression? And all those things, some things you don't learn from books. Getting out of depression, you don't learn from books. You learn from your support system. Right? Someone needs to be there for you. Someone needs to tell you and hold you and is willing to pull you back. And I'm very, very fortunate to have had that support system. So those are the challenges that I have to face in the past few years. Yeah.
Nice. Thank you so much. I think I'll take one or two questions from the floor now. Anybody would like to ask questions? Yeah. You want to come over here? Because the mic cannot come there.
Very quiet. Please unmute.
I just want to ask, through this challenges,
What's your name, sorry?
my name is Alda. I'm new student.
Okay.
What was your inspiration?
What was my inspiration?
Yeah. And through all these challenges, not just Picha.
Personal inspiration.
Yeah.
Right. So when I was 22 years old, I wanted to tour around the world being a guitarist. That's my inspiration. But after that, I realized how impactful it is to help someone be sustainable. It's impactful to them, but it's more impactful to me because I realize there's a purpose in the work that I do and in my daily life. So that's my aspiration, to live my life every single day with purpose and happiness. That's all. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Wonderful question. Any more questions? Oh yes, please shoot.
Okay, you said you have a school, the other school it's called. How many students are there?
So what the other school does is we work with the Refugee Learning Center. We don't necessarily own the center, but one of the center has 80 kids.
18.
Yes.
Okay, no, I thought you were running the school itself.
No,
So
so there's too many people running schools, and what we want to do is to run the software. We don't want to run the hardware. Yeah.
So you cater to the teaching, the teachers and stuff.
Teachers and students. Yes.
Anyone else? How do you recruit teachers in your...
How do I recruit teachers? We hire the
In case they
teachers.
could, you know, anyone...
Yeah, we hire them. We hire the teachers because the idea was for teachers to be paid and go to school to teach every single day. So we hire them, and how we recruit, I mean, we post it on jobs, job sites and our own LinkedIn platforms, and people would just send in their CVs and resumes for us to interview them. Yeah.
Okay, so there's an opportunity there for those who, think they would like to embark on that life.
Any questions that I can address them in this hour? Yes.
Prof, will you come out here? Prof Aziz.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the excellent talk. I just want to ask, I came a bit late, I have to admit. I managed to see your few last slides, and I was a bit concerned about the it's okay to fail slide. So how do you tell Malaysian parents that it is okay to fail? I appreciate your slide, really. I'm an academician, so I know what is fail. But how do we tell generally that it is okay to fail to our children? That's my question. Thank you.
Is it that you're asking how to really tell our parents that it is okay to fail?
Okay for the kids to fail.
How do we convey the message to our child? By actions. So my mom is a terrific role model. I grew up in a broken family. So my father passed away in 2018. But I grew up in a broken family because my father had an affair, right? And he didn't just have an affair. There were many affairs, and my mom had to be really, really strong to pull us together as a family for the 3 kids to graduate and have a good career, right? So I must say, she was afraid in the first many years. She was. And it is very normal for parents to be afraid. And as much as we kids want to tell our parents that, hey, don't be scared, it's okay, I'll figure out things. They will be, and it is okay as kids, to accept that our parents will always be afraid that they will lose us, that we will not have a good career, that we would not be able to sustain ourselves. It is very normal. And it is our kids' responsibility to show to them that it is okay, we can make it, right? When I wanted to be a musician, my mom was afraid. My father was like, okay, go do whatever you want. But my mom is definitely afraid, right? But I told her, give me 1 year, 2 years, and I'll experiment it, and I'll tell you whether it works or not. So that's you as a kid, as your responsibility to have that conversation. Now, back from parents to kids, and parents need to then give that experimentation time frame for your kid to try it out. And when they fail, do not say, I told you so. If you start saying, I told you so, that's where they will never grow. Because they will be more afraid to fail you later on. Right? So it's a two-way thing. I can't tell you that parents have to bear all the responsibility as a daughter myself. I have to bear responsibility as well to how I converse my future undertaking, to experiments that I want to do with my parents. And my parents need to resonate. Okay, so some of you may ask, what if your parents don't resonate with that? I don't have a definite answer. Okay, but I have seen my team members who many parents actually discourage them to come and work with Picha because they told them, the parents would tell them that Picha is not going to make it. Don't be in a company that has no future. Why would you work with refugees? They're so dirty. They don't have an idea who refugees are. And these kids, amazing. My team members are really amazing. What they did is they gradually show to their parents the work that they do. And educate them who refugees are and why they are here. They bring them for gatherings and events whenever we host them to help them see. And slowly, they open up. And many of my team members slowly gain confidence from their parents that Picha can make it. Picha is a career, and being a social entrepreneur can be a career. It is tough, but we have to go through that process and make fear into fearless. So I don't have a definite answer about the process, but it's a two-way thing. That's all I can say. Yeah.
Any other questions?
Hi. Okay, I've got one question. At a glance, you can see a lot of young men and women,
Yes.
mostly in the age of 40, 50, and 60s.
Yeah, 40,
Yeah.
50, 60.
Okay, so what advice would you give to those young men and women in their 40, 50, and 60 plus
Nice.
if they want to do something good, right? To go into social enterprise,
Okay.
we don't need to ask our parents.
Aye.
So what advice would you give? Thank you.
Good one. Alright, so 40, 50, 60s. I'm not in my 40s, 50s, 60s, but I want to say, number one, I want to say thank you. Why? Okay, in my leadership journey, I always tell every youngsters to thank the people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, the older generation who claims to be young. They are young at heart. Alright, so I want to thank because without you putting together a foundation, us at 20s, 30s won't be able to thrive in today's world. So give yourself a round of applause first for whatever you have built, for the university that you have built, for the foundation and future that you have built for many 20s, 30s. Next, second thing, if you want to go into social entrepreneurship, you have all the advantage that a 20s, 30s don't have. You have the experience that we don't have. You have made the mistakes that we have not made. You have the wisdom to have made it, right? My mom, at 62, is now in the kitchen cooking with my other team members, right? And the wisdom that she imparts into these youngsters is things that I can't do, right? Advices and confidence that she gave to these youngsters are things that I can't give. I can't give an advice. Whatever that I'm going to say and whatever she's going to say, it may sound, it may be the same words, same phrase, but it will sound different. Because I have not gone through those mistakes, and she has gone through certain mistakes. So you have all it takes to create a social enterprise that you want. That experience that you have are all assets. Right? You have that wisdom, you have that financial background, you probably have those networks that we do not have. Do you know how many, I'm sure Matthew knows, do you know how every day I have to go on LinkedIn and start clicking on people to connect and meet them every single day to build my social capital? But you don't have to because you've already had them. And I don't have, right? So with those things, you have all it takes to start a social enterprise. If not a social enterprise, a social movement in your own community and your own network. That's the advice I would give.
Last question, last call. Anyone else? Yes, please come. I was really expecting a question from you. Your name? Your name?
Amani, yes. So I'm Amani. Thank you for your inspiring speech. First of all, I'm from Yemen, so I came here actually because of the war in my country, and I faced a lot of challenges to continue my studies actually. So I know how it feels to help other people to continue their studies. And during the time I couldn't continue my studies, I had the chance to teach other refugees children. So I'm really now passionate about this and really want to continue doing this to other refugees because I know how it feels when you can't continue your studies. So my question is, what is your advice for someone who wants to start doing this kind of things? What is the first thing we should focus on?
For someone at your background or other people's background?
My background.
Your background.
Yeah.
As much as the gentleman who asked me about, what advice do I have for 40s, 50s, is the same to your background. You have what they don't have. What is it that you have that they don't have? You have adversity, you have so many things, experiences that they did not have. You faced danger before, you faced war, you faced where a bomb just hit right beside your homeland. You faced those things before. And those things are power that myself don't have. These people, these folks right here don't have. And those things are fire in you and passion in you to be doing what you want to do. So don't stop. Don't stop doing. You can be more powerful than I am. You see, when I tell a story of a refugee, it's just me telling a story. People may feel, but if it comes from you telling it, look at how many people will cry. Look at how many people will feel impacted. You using your own voice is so much more powerful than me representing your voice. So hold on to that voice and hold on to that fire and passion and continue doing it. Use social media to magnify your voice. Social media is free. Social media can be dangerous, but it can be very powerful as well if you use it as the right tool, right? Use social media to magnify your voice and tell stories and start a movement. And if you start it because of your background, it's going to be so much more powerful than any one of us who have not gone through what you've gone through. So much powerful.
Thank you.
Cool.
No, I have no more questions.
Yeah,
I
thanks,
think
guys.
we don't have any more questions from the floor, so let's give Ms. Lim another round of applause.